Hey everyone, hi, welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to be talking through VICTOBER, my Victorian book collection, essentially the things I rounded up rather quickly, and you know, where I'm at and what I think I may be doing for VICTOBER. So if you're new to my channel, then hi, welcome. My name is Shelly and I really love books and reading. And if you also love, although, you know, maybe this, I don't think this video will be negative, but I have complicated feelings about VICTOBER, and so I'm going to go into those feelings today. And I would love to have for them to be unbridled. I would love for my feeling for VICTOBER to be unbridled enthusiasm, but rather it's a little more mixed than that. And I'm going to be getting into that today, so I hope you enjoy. And if you're not yet subscribed and you're enjoying the vibe of the video, then I would encourage you to subscribe, stick around. Without any further rambling on, let's go ahead and get into the meat of this video. Before I actually jump into the meat of the video, I wanted to address a little bit of a camera change. I am much closer to, physically closer to my camera. I was noticing in my video about gratitude that I sat closer and I spoke softer, but I think part of it was the distance I had to the camera. And what I liked about that was that I am sure I'll get excited and speak loudly at points, but I think psychologically, because I was sitting at like a table's length distance away, I'm using hands, a table's length distance away, I was talking as if I was in a crowded cafe always, and my noise level was really high, and I kind of wanted it to be more of like me and you cozy times, and I wanted it to be perhaps a little more chill, and because I've been really low-key lately. I've just been really, I have been very busy, and we'll get into that in the meat of the video when I talk about VICTOBER and all of my feelings. And anyways, and so I think that I've been putting off filming certain videos because I feel like I have to muster a certain energy because I'm requiring myself to talk at a certain volume because of how far I sit from the camera. And so I'm trying something different, and so I'm hoping that you're gonna get like, I'm hoping this will be better for me and better for you all. And I also hope that the sound quality is really good because I'm sitting closer to the mic. So anyways, I thought that was worth chatting about because I know this is quite a different, like, I'm so much closer and you might not be able to see my hands as much. I'm just thinking about it now, and so it's on the top of my mind as I'm doing this video, and I thought it was, you know, worth sharing. Okay, let's get into the meat of the video. VICTOBER on BookTube stands for Victorian Literature October, in which we spend all of October reading, celebrating Victorian literature, watching movies that have to do with that time period, really immersing ourselves in the reign of Queen Victoria in England. This is a little bit of editing, Shelly, at the very end of the video, and I realized that I didn't talk about the host. How rude, how rude. VICTOBER is the mastermind of a couple of people on BookTube, and there's 5 hosts this year. This event has a host. It's being hosted by Katie at Books and Things, Kate Howe, Books with Petra, Roz at Scaladandolin about the books, and Marissa at Blatantly Bookish. Each host has prompts, and they are wonderful. I will leave their announcement videos linked down below. I have a lot of very meandering and like twisted up feelings about Victober, which I just spoke about, but of course I'm going to be inserting this in because I forgot to talk about the host and the prompts, which are always super fun, and they always do such a good job hosting Victober and getting everyone excited. And that's part of the thing with me, is that I want to be excited, and that excitement is conflicting with what's going on in my life. And anyhow, I'm gonna roll past Shelly, who's going to tell you all about it. Anyhow, but I did want to make sure that I talked about the hosts because that's important. Also, thank you, hosts, for putting on this event. It is ever so delightful. And so it was a really rich time for literature. It bloomed, and there was a lot of what we consider classics that came out of that period. Classics as, and I don't know why that term starts, because classics actually mean like the ancients, like ancient classical literature, the Greeks, Romans, and so on. But sometimes it seems like a lot of books, especially starting with the Regency period, Jane Austen, and then going into the Victorian period, and that, like, those books have now kind of wormed their way into the vernacular of classics. And so I think that's really an interesting thing, the way that language has changed in like how language is defined. So anyways, but a lot of big titles, big names come out of Victorian literature, such as Charles Dickens and the Brontes, Thomas Hardy, William Blake. I mean, there's a lot. George Eliot and Elizabeth Gaskell. So we're just seeing this absolute, like, I don't know, this explosion of fiction. I mean, that's how I see it. Like fiction that's still read today, that gets its grips into us modern readers, that were written in the Victorian period and that have withstood the test of time. And so I think as a whole, as an intellectual exercise and as like a thing for booktube, Victorian literature is pretty awesome. And I know that if it wasn't for booktube, I would have read quite a few less Victorian books on the whole. So it's not intellectually and as like a idea, I don't have anything against Victober in the least. So I think where I'm running into, I'm looking at my stack of books as my possibles, but I'll talk about my hesitancy to pick anything up. So I have a lot of Victorian literature, and at that time the books were serialized, and so it means that every chapter was published once a week, and that would be the next, it's what we kind of would assume now would be our equivalent to a new episode coming out of a television show, and how at times there's this anticipatoriness to getting the next episode, to seeing how the writers are going to keep the story going and keep you engaged, and there's like that thrill. And in Victorian times, the equivalent was their novels. They were serialized, coming out one issue at a time. If you already know this, I'm not talking down at all. I'm just leading into the fact that that means a lot of the books are incredibly long, because the longer you could draw the story out, the longer you can keep your readers engaged, the more likely you'll have a consistent paycheck. And of course, I'm no expert. I just have noticed that the length of a lot of Victorian novels are massive, or just enormous. And it's because of how books were being published then. And so I think that is perhaps at the root. I mean, it's not their fault that they're long. It's not their fault that books were being published in this way. But it does mean that for a modern reader, you know, they're not little BB things. They're like behemoths. And so here, I'll show you some of my longest my longest books Victorian literature that I own. Anthony Trollope's The Way We Live Now, which is 766 pages. Elizabeth Gaskell's Wives and Daughters, which runs at about 650 pages. George Eliot's Daniel Deronda, which is 710 pages. Maybe I'm proving myself a little bit wrong because that was all I had with books that were, I think, over 600 pages. But you know, they're large. They're large. I have a lot of books that run at about 500 pages. So with that, I have Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre, which for me, if I read this, it would be a reread. I also have George Eliot's Adam Bede, which runs about 590 pages. Okay, it's probably really good that I'm doing this video because I'm realizing that these books were not nearly as long as I had originally thought. So perhaps you will see a change in me over the course of the video. What? Okay, so this is Thomas Hardy's Tess of D'Umbervilles, which is at 465 pages. So the reason why I think I bring up this page count is because of this. I am really, and I think, I hope you all are not tiring of me saying this, but life is quite busy lately. And not just in the way that all lives have a sense of busyness to them. I am a teacher and a mother and a wife and also a human being, and I'm balancing all of these things. And so in a weird way, Victober is kind of coming at the worst time. I don't know. Is that true? I don't know. I mean, on the one hand, it's like, it's seasonal, and a lot of Victorian literature has these vibes, like incredibly descriptive and really lovely, just flowery writing, very atmospheric. The Brontes have quite atmospheric works. You know, speaking of atmospheric works, that is a tongue tire, or maybe just can't pronounce things. But I have Emily Bronte's Wuthering Heights. This would be a reread for me if I were to read this. But you know, it has like spooky vibes. You know, there's like vibes with Victorian literature that are attached to it. And so I think in terms of seasonality, Victober's coming at a beautiful time. And that is wonderful, you know. But in terms of my life, it's like we need to be planning things for me in particular, because, you know, I am the center of my own world. So, you know, it's coming at a time in which I am, you know, in the throes of school. I think I have one additional day off in the month of October. That is like a planned day off that, you know, in which I don't have to teach aside from weekends. So I just feel like I'm in this season of life in which I am really busy, and though I want to participate, I feel like Victorian literature books are too long, and they're just like it's gonna be demanding of my time, and I'm just gonna fail Victober, and I'm gonna be too busy, and I'm just feeling I am in my feels, you know, I'm in my feels. And so I don't know, maybe this is saying if I can't do it, like if I can't win Victorian Literature October, I'm not going to do it at all. But usually I'm not usually an all or nothing person. So I don't know what's going on with my mood, but I do know that there is a correlation between how busy my life is and how like the book length of Victorian literature, they all seem quite long. And so trying to balance these things. So I'm going to finish out my collection with some of the shorter books. I'll start with the books that I'm not really feeling, so I probably won't read, and then we'll end with the books that seem manageable to me in my brain, okay? That me in this season of life right now. I have A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. In this copy, it runs at about 400 pages. It's not calling to me. So many of you want me to read this. It's Thomas Hardy's Far From the Madding Crowd. So many people want me to read this. So many people want me to read this. And so, you know, it's on my mind. I'm thinking about it. It's only about it's about 400 pages. I mean, it's doable. It's doable. But yeah, I don't know. Also at about 400 pages, I have Jude the Obscure by Thomas Hardy. I don't know if I want to be miserable in October. I don't know. We'll see. But again, I don't know why 400 pages seems daunting right now. And finally, at about 450 pages, Charles Dickens's Oliver Twist is my last book that I'm not feeling really. And a lot of it is, again, page length. I don't know. Maybe now that I am talking it through, I'm realizing that a lot of these books are not nearly as long as I thought they were. If you would have asked me before this started, which that would have been interesting, if you would have asked me before I opened up and checked how long did I think Oliver Twist was, I would have said 550 pages. I would have been 100 pages off. I would have been about 100 pages off on George Eliot's Daniel Deronda, because I would have said that this is about 900 pages and it's not. I would have also said that this book is about between 600 and 700 pages, and it's only about 500 pages. So, you know, I think I'm overestimating. I'm like making Victorian books bigger in my mind than I actually thought they were. But here are the books that I think might actually be manageable for me in my life right now. 2 incredibly short stories by George Eliot, The Lifted Veil and Brother Jacob. To me, this seems doable. The stories are about 40 pages each. That seems doable. Maybe I'm just really sucked into Shorty September right now, and that's maybe that's so in Shorty September is where we read short books in September, and I am maybe sucked in and in that mindset, and I'm really just enjoying and loving the quickness of Shorty September. So maybe that's getting in and amongst me and shifting my view for Victorian books. So now I'm like, why don't we make Victorian books short? And so here's the first one. Maybe I should read this for Shorty September. Only time will tell. Okay, so this is on my mind for Victober. I also have Cranford by Elizabeth Gaskell. This is a strong contender for Victober because the story is told in vignettes. So I think that'll be quite easy to pick up and put down. Really, you know, that'll be just a wonderful thing to do. And it's at a very manageable page length. 158 pages. You're getting all of my feelings today, so I hope you don't mind a very meandering video. I don't know where this whole thing about I don't want to read big books is coming from, truly, because I have been reading big books all year. I've had a behemoth on the go all year long. It started with George Eliot's Middlemarch. That's what it started with. Like, it's a big book, and I loved it, and I read it, and that was my first big read of the year. And so I don't know where my dauntedness of big books is coming from. I'm not usually very daunted, and all of a sudden I am. Another quite short book by George Eliot is Silas Marner. It runs at about 180 pages. Another strong contender as I'm in this mood to read short books, apparently. I started and then put aside, and I need to go back to it, but The Warden by Anthony Trollope. This is a very, very short book. I started it, this copy is 160 pages. I started this book back in February, but I was just coming off reading Middlemarch, and I don't know what happened. I couldn't get into it. I tried and tried and tried. It could have been that I was just in a transition in my life, and so that was kind of tough, but I think I might have the space to try this again and to read it. But yeah, The Warden, again, a very short and manageable book. And then finally I have the poetry of William Blake, and so I could just dip in and out of this and enjoy some Blake, you know, and kind of go that route, and maybe not commit myself to even a whole book. Who am I? What is happening? So that's it in terms of all of the books that are on my mind, and my thoughts about Victober. I have a little bit of a reluctance, and it's not on purpose, I promise. I really, really, really love Victorian Victorian literature. I just am having a hard time coming around to the event, and I think so much of it is circumstantial, and so, for some reason some of it is built up in my head that Victorian novels are like 1,000 to 2,000 pages long, when really they're about 500 pages or even 400 pages. They're like, I have a lot of 400-page Victorian books, and so it's totally doable. Anyhow, that's it. These are all of my Victober thoughts. It's been on my mind so much. I've been seeing so many TBRs, and I was like, I'm feeling like I want to participate, but I'm feeling daunted. I'm feeling quite daunted, and I wanted to talk about it with y'all. Are you all feeling daunted? Where are you at with the Victorian planning? Are you going to participate? Are you not going to participate? Do you have a book picked out? Are you going to go full-fledged Victober and do all of the prompts that our hosts have set before us? Or are you going to take more of a back seat? I would love to know. And as always, I just really thank you so much for hanging out with me. I really, really, really appreciate it and spending this time with me, and I will see you all in my next one. Bye!